Welcome to the Work Done Right podcast, where we talk with industry professionals to discuss best practices in construction, manufacturing, and maintenance. I am your host, Wes Edmiston, Director of Product with Cumulus Digital Systems and 15-year construction industry veteran. Our guest today is Andrea Di Lillo. Andrea serves as the Global Business Development Director for Opex and Oil and Gas for Bureau Veritas, a world leader in testing, inspection, and certification. By helping its clients meeting the requirements of quality, safety, health, and sustainability, Bureau Veritas plays a crucial role in protecting their reputation. Andrea's background is operational and commercial, and prior to his time with Bureau Veritas, he held a diverse set of roles in his nearly 20 years in the energy industry, including maintenance engineer, project manager, operations manager, and business development manager. Andrea holds a master's degree in mechanical and management engineering from Università degli Studi dell'Aquila in L'Aquila, Italy. I'm sure I just said that incorrectly.
No, Wes was perfect.
In line with Bureau...
perfect. No problem. Go ahead.
Thank you, Andrea. In line with Bureau Veritas' commitment in the sustainability space, he is leading the Achieving Net Zero solution development to support oil and gas clients' progress toward net zero. Andrea is passionate about energy and climate advocacy and holds an extensive international experience. Andrea, welcome to the show.
So thank you very much, Wes, and great introduction. It is really a pleasure to be here, and L'Aquila now will become famous maybe globally. So thanks for that.
Yeah, hopefully we can put it on the map.
yeah, we will. No doubt.
Yeah, perfect. Well, hey, again, thank you for joining us here today. You have quite an extensive background and you've covered a lot of different domains. I was wondering if you could tell me a bit more about your background, maybe how you got into the industry and what it is more now that you do with Bureau Veritas. Okay,
so we will start with a very good question. So thank you for that, Chris. And what we know is that the background already gives some insight about what a person is, and then we will start imagining what the next might be. So in terms of my personal experience says, and this is also for people that maybe are starting today, maybe a new career, that you can stay in the same market space and get opportunity to change the angle of your view in order to, let's say, keep your curiosity ongoing and continuously discover some new perspective. And of course, we are here to learning more, no? So, and now I will, you said 20 years, so I'm starting to be a bit old. So I let me start from something that I tell only to few friends. So I graduated in mechanical engineer when in Italy. The 5 years master degree course was unfortunately taking a bit more than 5 years, but was 8-9 years. But if you want, we will discuss this in another episode maybe. And at that time, I was lucky enough to meet the right mates. And this is another important thing that if you learn it immediately, this will accelerate your development in the future. So working together and being a strong team, we help each other and we support each other until, let's say, the conclusion of the master degree, that it was less than 8 to 9 years. So it was a good start. And entering in the business, let's say, on time, I would say, this was an opportunity to be selected by an energy player that was operating in the oil and gas market. And at that, I want to share just one small thing, because this might happen to any new guys or ladies that will enter in the market. And I was fighting on this motto initially, that was we keep doing it this way because we have always done it this way. This made me crazy initially. But now that I'm, let's say, becoming a bit older, so I have to say that things are more clear. And I have to quote now Isaac Newton, maybe, because there is an interesting imaging that he was building. And he said, if I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And it is very clear that during every single day of my career, I had the proof that We can innovate really as soon as we leverage the experience that has been built until yesterday and then climb the shoulders of giants to look forward. So we have more clarity and we can push them full stream to move forward to the new destination. So in these 20 years, I had the opportunity, I was mentioning the different perspective, the different angles, and I would like to summarize it in three different perspectives, because initially I was, let's say, in a customer position and investing, let's say, a few years in every single day, because when you are in the plant, it's every single day that matters, in different refineries in Italy, and starting from what we call the inspection and maintenance engineering, to then be responsible for the all maintenance of two main, it is a bit technical terminology, but they call it integrated operating structure within the refinery. It's very common into the downstream where operation and maintenance collaborate. And after this great experience that made my life, I would say, I moved overseas. So from Italy overseas to Middle East, in order to have another perspective, in order to have to see the other side of the business, joining an EPC contractor that was having also the ambition to manage operation and maintenance, so full chain, no? And I was initially in charge for the project management, and then increasing my responsibility as a coordinator of project manager, and finally disrupting my career completely with a step in the commercial space. So leaving operation in order to join the commercial space. And in 2016, finally, I joined Veritas that knocked on my door, and this was at the end of my cycle in Middle East, so really ready for a new adventure that I accepted enthusiastically. And that was a new challenge, in fact, because the company was going through a new strategic direction to ensure, if you go back with the memory in 2015, so the fluctuation for oil and gas was crazy. Not that this day it's much better, no, I don't want to say that. Anyway, in 2015 it was really strange, but we were not yet at 2020. Anyway, it was to ensure better resilience into the oil and gas market, where there was a need to integrate from Bureau Veritas an indisputable strong market position into what we call the CapEx space, where there is new investment, with a better visibility and stronger position into the Opex space.
Wow. So I actually worked for Bureau Veritas for a few years in the past whenever I was doing inspection work. And I will say that I was very much impressed and surprised by, one, how professional the organization is, to be honest. They really are thorough and pretty dang outstanding whenever it comes to really inspection, testing, and certification. But to what you're touching on, it's very surprised at the fact that they're just about everywhere. They're in all the different industries, and really, again, I didn't know that 30 different tests through for my smartphone go through Bureau Veritas. But yeah, it's not surprising at all. They really do a phenomenal job, and they really, like you said, just touch on every single industry. It's pretty astounding. I'd like to talk a little bit more about your role, what you're doing now. One of the things that you are doing and that your team is doing is going through facilities and performing assessments on site sustainability. Could you define sustainability for me and maybe explain why a company might be interested in improving their sustainability?
Let's start from something that is more simple. So what I'm doing. So in my current role that you presented at the beginning, so I am in charge at global level for the business development of Opex oil and gas. We have to harmonize the strategy implementation while keeping the balance between local requirements in terms of regulation, applicable standards, and of course international best practice. And when we speak about Opex, what we refer is to activities that are in the space of operation and maintenance, and thus are related to running assets that are driven, and this is very important, by production objective and performance. Production objective and performance indicator. This is where we have to confront with the client. And in Bureau Veritas, the Opex has three major levels of contribution. I have to try to simplify that in the sense that there is a first level that it is what we could call conventional Opex, and it entails field inspection and non-destructive testing, activities with a focus on regulated market, with of course the opportunity to expand into the voluntary space. And the most of the people I discuss with have clear this in mind. What we have had on top of the conventional is the second level, that it is what we call the advanced Opex, that integrates the conventional with inspection and maintenance engineering expertise. That will come very close to what we did also together in the past, where we have expertise, we have methodologies, we have technologies, and this increase the added value in the direction of what? Digital data management. Because we start from the field, focus on the asset, and then from the physical asset to the digital asset, from the asset management to the digital asset management. And the third level is what we call the sustainable Opex. And based on your question, we will go a bit deeper on this, and allow me to connect the field experience and the asset integrity management expertise with ESG, and today makes more focus on the E of the ESG, the environmental, because this is the priority, and when it enters in the field of the environmental, the emission management gets some high-level priority. So maybe someone will say, okay, fine. Now we know that emission management is part of the Veritas Opex portfolio, but maybe you want to know if this is something new for BV. No, not really. So in fact, I have to tell you a piece of the story, and again, back to the giant, and then to have clarity and to look, let's say, further and to innovate. We have started delivering emission services back in 1990, when the main focus was, I'm not saying that is not, but today we are very focused on ESG and sustainability. The real attention it is still on HSE, and before this HSE was really main on the table as combination of health, safety and environmental. And in particular, let's say the focus was, it is still, I'm trying to say, telling the story, but confirming also what we have today on the VOC, the volatile organic compounds like alkane, aromatics, ethylene, oil, gas associated to equipment that have sealing devices and can emit fugitive emission. And when it comes to fugitive emission, at least I used to say that I immediately think to flanges, and this is your business, I would say valves, fittings, so leakage and so on. So we know that the main causes of this type of emission is sometimes the deterioration of sealing devices, often due to the age, but also operating condition, and sometimes also use of chemical products that are generating corrosion, but as we know, also incorrect installation and of tightening, so no doubt, right? So the VOC have some characteristic. First of all, are flammable and explosive products. So when VOC leaks can create definitely an atmosphere that is explosive. And what we were transferring as a message was, if you detect and repair your VOC leaks, you will increase your safety of your employees and subcontractors and protect your plants. But together with that, a significant part of VOC stream are also CMR compounds. Now today it's acronym based, so let me say it's more carcinogenic, mutagenic and reprotoxic CMR compounds, where these weaken image that can generate toxic atmosphere in the workplace. And what we were saying, and we are still saying to the client, if you detect and repair your VOC leaks, you will protect health of your employees and subcontractor. So flammable, CMR, but also there is another component, and in US, in Europe, but in different countries, let's say we have to recognize that fugitive emission control was and is still regulated, no? So there is a strong contribution in terms also of compliance. And maybe you know also that there is an influence of sunlight, so through UV, that let's say generate through the VOC tropospheric ozone. And in this case, VOC have been found to be major contributor or contributing factor, let's say, to ozone, which is a major pollutant. So in this case, if we detect, or so the client detect and repair VOC leaks, we reduce the environmental impact. So we complete the picture now. So this is what we used to say for VOC, but it is, let's say, similar in terms of approach with different gradients, also then for greenhouse gases and similar, with different grades of characteristic. But when we offer a best practice to our customer that is called leak detection repair, this is definitely applicable also to the greenhouse gas. And what we are saying in a general approach is that we have to consider always the short, the medium and long term impact. And this is important as a concept, because what in the short term we can get focusing on maintenance action on the leaking source will save time and money in the short term. But in the medium term, having a campaign with the leak detection and repair, for example, will provide to customer really a complete folder, let's say, that is dedicated to each leak. And we can, so for people that are in maintenance, understand clearly that we have enough information to prepare the maintenance action during the shutdown and turnaround. And whatever is prepared, it is again a cost saved. Finally, in the long term, there is also a possibility to use a dedicated database, let's say, that allow customer to adapt the maintenance strategy and choose technologies which are the most appropriate for their activities. So, customer have recognized, I have to say that today it's clear that leaking sources represent a production loss as well, and each product has also high cost, and therefore each leaking source is a financial loss. So during the last 30 years, we learned that a regular monitoring allows customer to save tons of VOC product while reducing emission. And therefore this approach, it's allowing customers to really improve production efficiency and save money. Now, this is another important concept that most probably during today's discussion we will touch base again. That is a connection between emission and performance. Emission and performance are not, let's say, two separate rails, are on the same direction. And this emission experience represent for Bureau Veritas one of the most successful way we started positioning our company into the sustainability space even before the sustainability became a priority.
I mean, a million. I think it is very important to define sustainability for everybody, especially with the way that you just phrased, really the last part of that, which, a lot of people will think about sustainability really only around, we'll say, this ESG kind of corporate social responsibility aspect. But there's so much more. There's so much more that goes into it. There's so much more that comes out of it. But, before we can really dive too deep into that, would you mind defining sustainability for us?
The example is this, that even my son asked me, hey, Papa, so Daddy, what sustainability is? And I said, can I explain? So I said, let me do it in a very simple way. So saying that sustainability is meeting what people like mommy and daddy wants, let's say today, without compromising, let's say what people like you and your friend will want tomorrow. So again, the balance between our own needs and future generation needs. But the challenge came a bit later because the question, of course, was, okay, Papa, understood, but how can you do that? Okay, so with children, you have to be at the point. You cannot circling around, and so I have also a key value in my life that says don't do let's say others what you don't want others do to you. That is my golden rule. Just one rule is enough, and I have discovered that also sustainability has golden rules. No, so I have answered to my son in a way that is you can do 3 actions. So one is reduce, reuse, and recycle. Now it's maybe a bit of a simplification. In fact, while answering, in my mind, but for an 8 years old child, it's okay, I think. So, but in my mind, I was also recognizing that those 3 golden rules are interacting with other levels of complexity that are, let's call it, interdependent factors like maybe collaboration, like control, communication, and commitment, I would say. So in the sense that this can happen through a collaborative approach. It can happen if we can really measure, control the progress. It can happen if we are able to also transparently communicate what is going on well, what can be done differently, how to really improve it, and of course commitment. So we have to commit to achieve. No. So in summary, I would say that sustainability can be defined as a collaborative opportunity to commit and take actions to ensure that we meet the needs of today and tomorrow. But now the most challenging part of your question was to explain why a company might be interested in improving their sustainability. And the market maybe have common answers, but I have to recognize that I prefer to use something that is closer to my background. So I will stay to my industry corner, and I thought immediately to one message that was shared a few, let's say, weeks back from a senior fellow at Manhattan Institute for Prager University. And he was saying more or less that today the reality is that oil plus natural gas plus coal provide 84% of all the world's energy. And the other thing that maybe data, it's always complicated to say this is perfect, this is not perfect. Anyway, that's down also just 2% points from 20 years ago. And oil still powers nearly 97% of all global transportation. So, having said that, why I'm thinking to that? Because one of the main threats of sustainability today is climate change, no? And so climate change is widely seen as maybe the biggest challenge of our age, because climate change it's making every one of us a bit awake, I would say, no? And greenhouse gas emissions contribute to climate change. So by reducing the greenhouse gas emission, we can help limit the increase of global temperature and help protect people from this potential catastrophic impact. So, and one of the largest sources of greenhouse gas emission from human activities, at least, is from burning fossil fuel that then are used to produce electricity, heat, transportation, and so on. So it's clear that oil and gas has a strong role to play. So we have a strong role to play in the energy market and in terms of sustainability. But the question is why an oil and gas company might be interested in improving the sustainability. I believe that there are multiple answers, but I would like to select 2 main reasons. So both are related to the main objective of an energy company, that is to increase value. And let's say both reasons that are also opportunity are the financial performance and the ESG performance that are an opportunity, as I said, to contribute to the environment, social, and governance. And performance and contribution, in my opinion, draw the loop of continuous improvement for the industry and in particular for the oil and gas. And in conclusion, I believe that oil and gas companies are interested to improve their sustainability, to continuously improve performance. What do you think?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And that's a lens that I don't think a lot of people look through oftentimes enough, which is, whenever we limit our emissions, whenever we improve our current performance, we aren't just reducing our emissions. We are also increasing performance. We're increasing efficiency, which, if we look at all of the areas of opportunity for that, we would be able to largely reduce the amount of emissions that we're creating just from that, right? While also basically increasing our bottom line, which I think is, I don't think people think closing that loop, like you're saying, thinking about this really holistically in the same manner, especially considering, like you're saying, still a significant portion of the world is dependent on fossil fuels and traditional forms of energy. So while we are spreading out, improving, or we'll say, expanding out into some of these renewable markets and battery powered vehicles, et cetera, we still, that is somewhat of a long journey. So let's do what we can to improve what we're already doing as well, make that as efficient as possible to, we'll say, in some ways, slow the bleed, right? But yeah, it's definitely, again, thinking, I represented Shell for a significant amount of time as well in my career. And they're definitely a company that was heavily focused on really the environment and sustainability as a whole. So I've been seeing this coming for quite a while. It's great to see, I'm curious, pardon me. I'm curious, what sort of areas that you're frequently looking at whenever you were going into these facilities? Where are those kind of frequent offenders that you see whenever you go into one of these facilities, one of these operating facilities? Are there any frequent high risk areas, and how does that translate into a company reducing their carbon footprint, but also how is it helping them to improve this operational productivity? What sort of return are they seeing off of reducing those inefficiencies and those emissions?
The first thing is that there are definitely high risk areas in emission, and I have to say that it's always challenging to enter into this space. But we know that every and any operator is able to answer quickly to this question based on their experience. But we know that sustainability is it's a collaborative, let's say, opportunity to commit and let's say take action. And to make sure that we progress into the right direction, we have to ensure that we have reliable data, properly structured and organized data, in order to take data-driven decision. In my opinion, the real focus stays here. Yesterday I was in Berlin, and I participated to a PTC conference that maybe all people that are at least in the midstream sector are familiar with. It is the Pipeline Technology Conference, and it's an international meeting of oil and gas players that wants to continue improving performance and let's say sharing solutions and best practices. And it is always, the oil and gas world, it is not so big at the end. So you have the opportunity to meet again with people that people that you came to know. And one of the takeaway when you are part of this community is that sharing, and again, collaboration and sharing, it's a recurrent topic in our discussion. But sharing, it is really a motorway to learn twice, because it's really you give and you take, you give and you take. And I had the opportunity from my side to listen to many brilliant papers, and we presented also from our side a paper on digital quality assurance of emission data in order to assist client progressing toward net zero. So I think I'm going to use this example also to review part of your question and maybe to expand a bit. So similarly to what we do when we deliver asset integrity management services, we have executed a project with one of our customers to answer to two main questions. Now, those are when the first time that those two questions came to me, I said, wow, okay, so simple question, but as usual, everything starts from something that seems to be simple, and then we have to be elaborating a bit more. So, am I and my team considering all the sources of emission into our inventory? Simple question. Second, how reliable is today our emission quantification? So, it is fair, no? I think that good question. So, into the paper that I presented and the business case that we discussed, we have leveraged the implementation of a solution that we call Achieving Net Zero. That it is a group of different program. One of them is called Holistic Digital Program that has been designed and carried out by our expert in order to deliver to our customer an evaluation that is independent on the current emission quantification. And it is interesting, I will use a number in order to tell you what was the answer to the second question. How reliable are those emissions that today we are looking and we are considering? 37% it was, in a range between 0 to 100. So how we did this? We extracted from data that are available and we assess, that is very traditional approach, process and system, but not from an high level, granular level, going deep, okay? So this means that someone can ask, is it possible to quantify the value of quality? In this case, it is possible to quantify the value of quality.
Yeah, especially whenever you're looking at, if you're able to truly quantify what your losses are, you are there and able to quantify what your gains would be there, and if you had, we'll say, perfect quality, right? So yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
So this business case made clear that available emission data does not mean necessarily that the emission data are reliable. So the fact that we have data, it's not obvious that those data are reliable. And the second outcome of our assessment that we delivered to the client was a list of improvement areas in order to comply with what? Policy, regulation, and going beyond the compliance. You remember regulated service and voluntary, so we have to go also beyond in order to implement the international best practice. And what we made clearer is that the emission inventory was not really including all the potential sources. And consequently, our customer was underestimating the quantification of emission. So this was answering also to the first question. It is, in terms of completeness, meeting the expectation of our inventory? No. Now, the combination of these two results were a strong contribution to the project manager that were responsible for the mitigation plan. Because at the end of the day, what it is relevant for our client, we said, increase financial performance and increase ESG performance. And how to do that? It is due putting in place a mitigation plan. But the combination of these two information made, let's say, in front of the project manager responsible for the mitigation plan, clear that the baseline was not yet ready. And hotspot identification was to be the identification was to be reconsidered after the improvement plan implementation in order to have proper alignment between what? Investment and strategy. Because at the end of the day, there is also a budget in between, and there is a communication of the strategy. We have to align that and then measure the progress versus a reliable baseline. The last outcome that was interesting to discuss with the client and present also during the conference was that we know that the customer objective are value increase in terms of two main directions, transparency and performance. And with this, let's say, business case, customer got verified, reliable, independent data in order to report and communicate transparently progress. But there is also the operational benefit where operational team got an interesting split. This is very innovative. The split of emission accountability that was organized by business unit ownership in order to convert a traditional way to express the emission, that is a ton of CO2 equivalent, in dollar of carbon exposure. So every business unit is responsible and accountable in that specific part of the plant for those emissions that are putting the company in this type of potential carbon exposure. And so if we assess what is maybe one of the potential question from the audience could be what is the cost of quality or what is the cost of pure quality. So in this case, also to answer before into your question, there were multiple streams, and let's say in terms of offender, in terms of high risk part of the facility. But here there are a lot of potential impact for the client and benefit to avoid that and to anticipate, because the risk of pure quality here would have impact on the progress evaluation because there was an incomplete baseline. An inaccurate selection of hotspot, what we call bad actors in the asset integrity management, misleading a misleading budget estimation of the mitigation plan, and then finally an underestimation of carbon exposure.
What comes to my mind is, you're saying that each of these different, we'll say, business lines within the operating unit have, we'll say, their own individual carbon exposure and their impact, we'll say, commercially, even based on what their equivalent tons of CO2 emissions are. But again, that's not just they're emitting that, so that has a cost. That's doubly compounded by the fact that they are not realizing those performance benefits either. I was wondering, could you provide, we'll say, either an average, an example of what sort of return people are getting whenever they are, we'll say, striving toward that perfect quality, whenever they're objectively looking at their emissions and reducing some of these bad actors? Because one of the things that, as you know, we have a service that largely is, we'll say, quality driven, right? And I think that this is something you could probably relate to as well, especially, with your commercial experience in doing business development. We have a product that is quality driven, and it's very hard to kind of, we'll say, prove the negative as far as, this is what it would have cost you had you not used our system, because we do bolster quality by so much, right? So how is it that, could you provide a quantified benefit to the production capacity, to operational integrity, and to emissions for when people do reduce their emissions and, we'll say, eliminate as best they can these bad actors?
So it is a brilliant question, and again, our coming and popping up a lot of things that every one of us that had experience in plant or daily discussion with the clients, because our customers knows perfectly how they are operating and how they are performing, and let's say where are element of improvement. But we need to give one small example, not in terms of impact, but it is limited. Let me pick up one. So natural gas industries are using a variety of control devices to automatically operate valves, and also control pressure, flow, temperature, and liquid levels, for example. No, and we know that those control devices can be powered in a different manner, so it could be by electricity or compressed air, and this of course depends on availability, economic factors, and so on. But in many applications, however, let's say in the gas industry, are using a pneumatic device that are using, or let's say employing, the energy from pressurized natural gas. Let me simplify, because not everyone maybe that will listen is familiar. So if you consider a transmission sector where there are gas transportation pipeline, compression station, many small facilities that are spread all over the territory, so you will notice that still some control valves, the one that are closing and opening and let's say managing the flow, are actuated by the gas itself. So in order, let's say, to open and close, there is an automation loop, and this automation loop, unfortunately, finally bleeds or vents, either intermittently or continuously, the gas that it is circulated in the atmosphere. Some years back, the methane emission from the pneumatic devices, for example, in the production sector, were estimated, so this venting, small venting, but continuous or intermittent, in the range of 50 billion cubic feet per year. So it is interesting, no? So it's a good amount, no? If you consider, let's say, in the transportation sector, it was in the range of 10-15 billions, and even in the processing sector in the range of 1 billion cubic feet.
A lot of things come to mind with this. One, thinking about just the number of facilities that we have out here that are, piloted, that have valves that are piloted in this fashion, that are continuously venting gas. Yeah, it's not outside of the realm of possibilities to consider that, the amount of emissions that is created by this. And that's just, gas. It's not, we'll say, equivalent tons of CO2. It's not unbelievable to think about that. I mean, a dripping faucet that drips 1 drip per second drips something in the ballpark of 2,000 to 3,000 gallons of water per year. The molecule for natural gas is pretty dang small, especially compared to water. So yeah, it's not, even so, just isolating in that one area, yeah, it's not unbelievable to consider that 50 billion cubic feet of gas is being released per annum from that. The other thing that comes to mind with that is, one, we have a lot more facilities that are being built still. So as we engineer these new facilities, we should look at better ways of potentially better equipment that we could be putting into these locations, especially for the fact that, again, that's 50 billion cubic feet per year that's lost from production capacity. Even outside of the aspect of, what is the impact for CO2 that's released and the impact on air quality and everything else that comes with it, how much production capacity is lost off of that? That's immense, right? So of course there's an incentive for these operators, these owner operators, in order to reduce these emissions and target these specific areas. And the fact that it gets back to what you said earlier. This is the way that we've always done things. I think it was Rear Admiral Grace Hopper said, that this is the way we've, or what is it? We have, what is it? Rear Admiral Grace Hopper once said that, I'm butchering this, but yeah, it's effectively that, right? It's, Gabby will edit this out. However, but it's that, this is the way, because this is the way we've always done things, or the worst words in the language or something of that nature. It's exactly that. Like, oh, because we've always done it this way, or something of that nature. Yeah. Anywho, but it's, this idea that, well, yeah, we of course we're going to be using this type of equipment, or yes, of course we're going to be making connections between piping systems in this way. There's an understanding that, yeah, they leak, but this is the way we've always done it. Well, why do we continue to do it that way? We can innovate. We can create better ways of doing things that are going to improve the bottom line, that are going to improve the environment and reduce emissions, and it's going to be really a win-win for everybody. And, that's just in one area as far as, how much emission is being let out. What about every other potential area of, location of potential failure? There's a significant, there's just a huge opportunity out there. Yeah, that's exactly it. There's a huge opportunity out there to just make improvements that, in my mind, I consider there the people out there that think some of this is controversial or not worthwhile doing. I just think, how can you consider that whenever you think, again, closing the loop in total? This isn't just increasing production capacity. This isn't just improving the environment. It's both. It's all of it. This is how everybody improves. Yeah, it's incredible. Andrea, we're a little bit over on time, but I still wanted to get an opportunity to ask you a few rapid fire questions, just to get to know Andrea, the person, a little bit more, not just Andrea, the professional. So just to kick this off, Andrea, what motivates you to advance in your career? You've held plenty of different types of roles. You said it in the very beginning, changing the angle of your view in your career, even in the same industry. So what motivates you to do more?
Very simple: contribute more and make an impact, I would say.
What is your ideal vacation?
My ideal one is in a beach house, swimming, playing tennis, and eating healthy food with family and friends.
What is your favorite book?
It's called The Inner Game of Tennis, and it is by Timothy Galloway.
What is your favorite movie?
I'm not a cinema expert, I have to say, but there is one movie that I have watched multiple times. It's an old movie, and it's The Untouchable. I love it.
That's good. What is your dream job?
I would love to be Prime Minister. Do you think it's possible? Why not?
I greatly enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for joining me here today. This was an absolute pleasure. We should do this again sometime.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure for me. And let's get together again sometimes in the next days.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of the Work Done Right podcast. Please help us out by subscribing and leaving us a review. And as always, our show notes are linked in this episode's description. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.